Thanks for joining us. My name is Kate Van Dale, and I'm the Public Information Officer with the City of Duluth. Today, we are continuing with our weekly press conference series to provide you, the public, with updated information and any new announcements that the city may have. Each week, we provided you with the opportunity to provide us with questions that you may have by emailing us at info@duluthmn.gov. We've received a bunch already today, so thank you very much. If we don't have a chance to answer all of your questions today, please know that a member of our team will get back to you as soon as possible. And thanks again for making the time to contact us. Joining us on the call today to provide updates are Mayor Emily Larson, incoming City Attorney Rebecca St. George, Chief Administrative Officer Noah Shuckman, and Jim Philby-Williams, Director of Parks, Properties, and Libraries. And with that, Mayor, I will hand it over to you. You are unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Kate, and thank you, everybody, for being here. This is our 8th weekly press conference, and I appreciate your attention to everything that is happening in this community during this very bizarre time we are all living through, and so I appreciate that. We intend, when COVID-19 started here in Duluth, we had a series of press conferences that were collaborative with some of our partners, and we had them several times a week for, I think, 2 weeks. Then we took a couple weeks off. Then we started these weekly press conferences, and we are going to consider taking a pause at this time on the weekly press conferences. Take next week off. See if we need to continue these in this format as things are slowly reopening, as we're making the announcements that we have, as we are making the decisions that we're bringing forward and having an opportunity to explain them to you. We want to just take a pause and see if we still need and or want to do these weekly press conferences. So please provide us your feedback in the next week if it's content that you're missing and a connection to the city of Duluth that we aren't providing through the other channels that were more difficult for us when COVID-19 first took hold. So I do just want to say a couple of things. When we closed our buildings on March 17th, we did not know how long that would go. We did not really know what to expect, although we were planful and we were tracking this virus for, a couple of months and making good plans, thoughtful plans that kept the staff, the health and safety of our staff and residents top of mind. There were still a lot of things we didn't know, and we have really worked hard to try to be a good communication partner with all of you. This is our 8th weekly press conference, and during the time of this pandemic, we have issued 105 press releases. That excludes any press releases from public safety because they do their own, but the city of Duluth. We hosted a press conference with Governor Walz in person and the swearing in of Councillor Tomanik. So all of that was done as a way to connect with all of you and to help you continue to feel connected and understanding what's going on in the city of Duluth. So here we are, and it is 102 days since we closed city facilities. And that is actually about 100 days that we have spent strategizing and dealing with the experience of COVID-19 in this community. It is during that time that we are also seeing and experience an increase of civil and civic unrest that stem in part from the murder of George Floyd, but are based on many things that are underlying, including people feeling uncertain about the state of the world right now and having their own experiences, whether it is inclusive of a job loss or instability in the routines that we have all known. It has been a disruptive 2020, and it's been hard for all of us. So I just want to acknowledge that, and I especially want to thank our city staff. Many of us have not had a day off at all since March, and that's okay. That is our job, so that is not a complaint. It is to acknowledge, however, that many people and their families are giving every day in support of this community, and I'm really grateful for that. I especially want to thank City of Duluth residents because you are invested, whether it is, petitions, marches, rallies, letters, emails, testifying at a city council meeting, letting us know what's important to you. Democracy does compel us to participate. And it doesn't mean we're always going to get what we want. It doesn't mean that we're always going to have our best hope come to fruition. But it does require us to show up and be up for the conversation that's ahead. So I thank you for that and for always sending in your questions. May not always be the questions I like being asked, but that again is part of this work and part of living in a community together as we ask each other hard questions. So as I mentioned before, today will be our 8th press today is just to provide some more updates and announcements in a timely manner. So I will just get started with the information that I want to provide to you because we have a lot, as usual, to share with you. On Monday, I provided an update on our city's budget to the Duluth City Council. You can find the copy of that presentation, the PowerPoint. You can find the recording of that on our city website. I encourage you, if this is an area of interest for you, to do that. We spent 90 minutes on Monday reviewing the budget, talking about the revenue gaps that we have, talking about the very real impact of COVID-19 on our budget, talking about the fact that unemployment is at an all-time high, with a significant percentage of our workforce that was eligible to work in 2019 now receiving unemployment. We talked about my concerns for the Paycheck Protection Program really being tested now with businesses who were able to receive that benefit and now they are open. And was that enough to help keep them sustained and help keep them marketable and help keep them thriving? We talked about unemployment cutting off July 31st for people unless that is extended, and what will happen now for people who are job seeking. We discussed assets that we have in the city, whether they are land or property, non-land assets. What is the process to sell that? How do we go about that? We talked about the impact on employees and when and how we are bringing people back. And we thanked our staff because they are a part of this budget solution by an MOU that the council supported on Monday with AFSCME for voluntary furlough that they are taking. And we are in negotiations. Well, we are discussing other options with other bargaining units as well. So we discussed really a lot on Monday. I encourage you to go in and see that. Our initial prediction was that we would have an overall revenue shortfall of between 20 and 38 million for the city of Duluth. That revenue shortfall includes enterprise funds and dedicated funds that don't impact our general fund. And again, we kind of specified and went over all this in different presentations. So right now, our projection is that we are at about a $25 million gap. That is based on tracking the last few months of revenues through sales tax, through tourism tax. It's the property tax collections, which was actually right on the prediction of we expected between 5 and 20% drop in property tax. It's right at 5%. In the presentation, you will find information that indicates the drop in tourism tax. Hotel, motel, for instance, was down 80%, more than 80% in April. So these are the kinds of things that we're tracking. And then we also talked about consumer spending, which makes up 2/3 of an economy. And the fact that right now, because of government support, because of unemployment, because of different metrics like that, overall, while there is a very large number of people unemployed, overall, people's incomes are either stable or going up. I don't know how long that will be the case. However, their spending is going down. I think because we don't know how long it will be the case that people will have incomes to support them, their mortgage, their rent, all of the things. So there was a lot that we covered. I thank the council. They were deeply engaged in the discussion and had very good questions of us as a community. Later today, I will be sending a letter directly to Governor Tim Walz requesting that he move immediately to allocate CARES funding through his service as governor, meaning he no longer wait to do this in partnership with the state legislature. This is because there are different avenues and venues by which CARES Act funding allocated March 22nd by the federal government can be allocated to local units. Got it? There are two different ways that money can be allocated to local units of government by the CARES Act. The first is through executive action by the governor. The second is through legislative action with the state House and Senate, through, of course, deliberations that we are not a part of. That did not happen during the legislative session, and that leaves us with a gaping wound, financial wound and hemorrhage that needs to be addressed. I will be sending that letter to Governor Tim Walz later today and asking that he move swiftly, quickly, and with authority, exercising his power as governor to provide that funding. We anticipate $6.5 million to the city of Duluth. That does not cover our revenue shortfall, but it does cover our costs incurred as a result of COVID-19. And again, that's something we talked about in greater detail on Monday. We will continue to evaluate and track everything. We need to start working on the 2021 budget. We normally budget year round, and we are working on this budget already because we are so ensconced in COVID-19 and the budget issues of now. We are unable to be where we want to be in our budgeting for next year. So we are going to start digging in deeply to prepare for that with the council later this fall. I have one more thing before I introduce our new city attorney, Rebecca St. George, and it is to announce that DEED, Minnesota DEED, has a business grant. It is a small business relief grant that they are issuing. It is a 10-day window to apply. When COVID-19 hit, we talked with our staff about being quick, about being nimble, about being ready, about doing everything we can to support business. And I am so proud of our planning and economic development team, who strategized with the 1200 Fund and DEDA to get a lot of money out the door to local businesses that needed it to fill that gap, for whom the Paycheck Protection Program wouldn't be enough, for whom the Paycheck Protection Program wasn't an option. I am so proud of that innovation at work, and I am even more proud that now the state of Minnesota is following that lead, and they are issuing $60 million to businesses that have 50 and fewer employees. They are grants of $10,000. They are flat grants. 50% of those will be in greater Minnesota. 50% will be issued in the metro area, and it is through a lottery system. There are also other pockets that they are identifying. For instance, veteran-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, businesses owned by people of color and people who are indigenous. So a lot of different buckets that they are considering, because we want to make sure that economic recovery hits all of us. But kudos to our team led by Chris Bleach and Adam Fulton, who set out a very deliberative, proactive path to support our businesses that is being implemented here locally and now brought and replicated really on a statewide level. So I really appreciate that. And you can find out information. I'm sorry, it's very easy to find out information on the DEED website. I went in myself just to make sure it was clear, it was easy. You can find the application materials. Please, please, please apply. We want our businesses to continue to do well and to thrive. So it is my pleasure to reintroduce to you Rebecca St. George, who has officially and unanimously been supported by our Duluth City Council to serve in the role as city attorney for the city of Duluth. I thank the Duluth City Council for their participation and their questions of Ms. St. George last week during the agenda session. Just want to say a few things. We had a hiring process that involved staff within our attorney division. It involved President Anderson, Vice President Van Nett, and other director level and leadership level staff. I actually could not be more excited to welcome Rebecca to our team. She brings an incredibly unique perspective to the law. She served as an advocate with many local nonprofits before getting her law degree. So she knows the law 360. She knows it from the inside. She knows it from the outside. She knows and understands how you harness and leverage other people's intellect and experiences to create effective public policy, and knows what the law looks like from someone who needs to see it changed, as well as from the inside, pushing for greater access and equity and fairness, and just plain good legal support for a government, and for, in our case, a municipality. Rebecca, in the last 6.5 years, has served an attorney for the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. She's known nationally for her work as a legal and public policy advocate in addressing domestic and sexual violence against Native American women. While Rebecca won't start in her new role until mid-July, I did ask her to join with us today so that we could formally introduce her to you in her new capacity. So welcome, Rebecca. We are very excited to have you here today, and thank you so much for trusting the city of Duluth with your professional capacity.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Kate. Thank you, Mayor Larson, for the opportunity to be here today. First, before I say much, I'd like to say Chi-miigwech to the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior Chippewa for the opportunity they've given me to serve as one of their attorneys for the past 6.5 years. The relationships I've developed and the experiences I have had have been wonderful. I will always hold that closely in my heart. As I move into this new position with the City of Duluth, I look forward to continuing to serve our Fond du Lac band members who are Duluth residents and to continue a good relationship with the band in general. I am very excited to join the City of Duluth team and to learn more about the organization. The City Attorney's Office is filled with bright attorneys and staff who are committed to public service in a way that I'm very eager to join. I was drawn to this position for a number of reasons. One big reason is simply that I have a very deep love of Duluth, and I am thrilled at the opportunity to meaningfully serve the city that I love. I sincerely respect the current leadership of the city and the direction they are bringing us. I appreciate their willingness to address and take on some of the hard issues, such as racism, poverty, homelessness, criminal justice reform, inequities that exist throughout our great city, and of course, potholes. I was born in Superior. My family is from the Twin Ports area from way back. On my mother's side, about 4 generations, and on my father's side, since his ancestors came here hundreds of years ago from the East Coast, looking for the food that grows on water. I grew up mostly on the Iron Range in Mountain Iron, where my father worked at Mintac, and have been in Duluth for about 25 years. I graduated from the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis, where I majored in anthropology and American Indian studies. Since I moved to Duluth in the mid-90s, I've been given numerous opportunities to work on policy and advocacy issues of domestic and sexual violence, on issues of jurisdictional challenges in Indian country, and on racial justice issues in the criminal justice system. I've also raised 2 wonderful human beings who are almost no longer children. I graduated from Hamline University School of Law after participating in their weekend program, and I went to work for the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior Chippewa as in-house counsel, as was said before. During my tenure with the band, I have had numerous opportunities to develop a deep understanding of the internal workings and legal needs of a small government serving members, employees, and businesses. I look forward to bringing my skills and passion for Duluth to the City Attorney's Office, and I thank you, Mayor Larson, the Duluth City Council, and CAO Schuckman for the opportunity to serve. I look forward to getting to know everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Next up, we've got Jim Philby-Williams, who's our Director of Parks, Properties, and Libraries. Jim, I just want to make sure that you are unmuted. You are. Go ahead.
Thank you, Kate, very, very much. I've got 3 things to report on Duluth Parks for summer 2020. A brief update on the Lake Superior Zoo. Looks like I just lost video. I'll get that back on. And an update on our planned Spirit Mountain Task Force process. First of all, Duluth Parks. We are very happy to report significant increases in the use and enjoyment of our parks and trails this summer as the result of an array of factors, including diminished disease transmission, increased tourist visitation, improving weather, and the end of the school year. And while enjoyment of our parks is always good news, we also wish to acknowledge that the increase in use has driven a significant uptick in the need for park maintenance services, such as garbage collection, that our current reduced park maintenance workforce has sometimes had difficulty meeting. Looking forward, new state of Minnesota orders further loosening restrictions on park activities can be expected to add further to the need for additional park maintenance services. Last Friday, for example, Governor Walz issued an executive order that allows outdoor sports, practices, and games to resume. news that we welcome, but do not currently have the staff to support. And so, in order to support increased enjoyment of our parks this summer and fall, I am pleased to announce that the City of Duluth is going to partially restore park maintenance staffing levels from mid-July until at least mid-October. 100% of the cost to partially restore service levels for this period will be paid for using reserves from the voter-approved park fund, which by law may only be used to support our park system. Park fund reserves are not sufficient to cover the cost to fully and permanently restore the park maintenance workforce. However, they are sufficient to allow Duluth residents and visitors to enjoy more of their favorite activities this summer and fall. The partial restoration of park maintenance staffing levels will allow the city to gradually increase the frequency of mowing and garbage collection, resume some park facility rentals and events, increase the cap on group sizes to state maximums, which can be as high as 250 for some outdoor event types, and allow the gradual resumption of outdoor sports practices and games. While we are pleased to report this good news, we also want to manage expectations. Service levels cannot be partially restored until the park maintenance workforce is partially restored. It'll take us about 3 weeks until mid-July to partially restore that workforce and the service levels. And that restoration will, as I've said, only be partial. Even when we have brought back all of the staff we can afford to employ this summer, park maintenance workforce will still be nearly 1/4 below the usual level. And as a result, service levels by mid-July will be higher than they have been thus far this year, but not as high as they usually are. So, for example, park maintenance will be preparing some, but not all of our athletic fields for games and practices, and resuming mowing of some, but not all of our turf areas. City of Duluth Park staff will be in communication with various user groups in the weeks ahead, including youth and adult sports leagues, to discuss how the partial restoration of park maintenance service levels will impact and benefit them. You and the community can expect a series of parks announcements over the next few weeks, conveying more of the details of plans to restore the workforce and its service levels. And look for those details to be made available in press releases and on the park's webpage. Quick side note about the Lake Superior Zoo. We continue to have good news on that front. The Lake Superior Zoo will move into its second phase of reopening beginning Thursday, July 2nd, which will include access to most indoor exhibits. The response to the reopening and to the new brown bear exhibit has been tremendous, and we encourage folks to get out there and enjoy those renewed exhibits and the opportunity to be outside at the zoo. Beyond Duluth Parks, I want to provide a brief update on previously announced plans to create a Spirit Mountain task force to advise Mayor Larson and the City Council on how to improve the financial sustainability of Spirit Mountain Recreation Area. First, we are very pleased to announce that District City Councilor Janet King, Councilor at Large, have agreed to coach the task force. Councilor King is engaged leadership in Western Duluth communities surrounding Spirit Mountain, and Councilor Forsman as the very engaged chair of the Council Parks and Libraries Committee, really make them the perfect co-chairs for this important effort. We are grateful to both councilors for their willingness to take on this significant task, and we thank them ahead of time for their service. Second, the city will today begin accepting nominations from other individuals who are interested in serving on the task force. The 9 to 11 member task force will work in partnership with city staff, Spirit Mountain staff, and consultants for the remainder of the year to draft recommendations for the mayor and ultimately for city council and the Spirit Mountain Board of Directors. Anyone can apply to serve on the task force, and the city is especially interested in individuals who have appreciable business expertise and or have a strong connection to spirit of one kind or another. Applications will open today, June 24th, and will close at 4:30 p.m. on July 8th. Applications will be available on the boards and commissions section of the city website and in a media release scheduled to go out today. Task force members will be announced in mid-July. As a reminder, the task force will be encouraged to examine all options to achieve financial sustainability at Spirit, including business improvement strategies, capital infrastructure, financing, renewal and consolidation, adjustments to tourism tax support, and importantly, strategic partnerships that may include options such as sale, lease, contract operation, and or redevelopment, or all or portions of Spirit Mountain's facilities and operations. That is all of the updates I had for today. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Before we get to questions and before I hand it back over to Mayor Larson, I know that we were having some technical difficulties and folks being able to hear Jim, so I just wanted to repeat a few things that he had mentioned in regards to the Spirit Mountain Recreational Area Task Force that we had mentioned a few weeks ago. So again, in partnership with Spirit Mountain, the city is creating a task force that will go live. Applications will go live today on our website. We'll have a post up later and can share that link with this group. But again, it is to achieve financial sustainability, including a sustainable plan to pay for and repair the replacement of deteriorated infrastructure. Mayor Larson will appoint 9 to 11 members of the Duluth community who will work in partnership with city staff, Spirit Mountain staff, and consultants to draft recommendations for the mayor, the city council, and the Spirit Mountain Board of Directors. The task force is going to be co-chaired by Councilor Forsman and Councilor Kennedy, and we'll have several different staff that will be on that committee as well. The task force will be encouraged to examine all options to achieve financial sustainability, including business improvement strategies, including pricing, scope of services, marketing, days of season operation, etc., capital infrastructure, right sizing and renewal, adjustments to tourism tax support, and strategic partnership, which will include nonprofits, units of government, resort management firms, and or developers for sale, lease, contract operation, and or redevelopment of all portions of Spirit facilities and operations. Anybody is able to apply for this task force and is encouraged to do so. However, the city is especially interested in business experts and residents who have a strong connection to Spirit, who can draw upon their experience and expertise to contribute constructively to group decision-making processes. Applications that I mentioned are going to be live today on our website and will close at 4:30 on July 8th. Selected task force members will be announced in mid-July. And again, just wanted to say special thanks to Brandy Ream, who's the executive director at Spirit Mountain Task Force, and then to Councilor Forsman and Kennedy for being willing to serve as co-chairs in that role. So for those in the media that were having technical problems, I'm sure that we can answer questions if you have them, which we'll open up for in just a second. However, before we do that, I wanted to check in with Mayor Larson to see if you had any final notes before we open.
Yeah, just a few. Thank you, Kate. And thank you to our team who has presented a lot of information. I just want to acknowledge that during this time of COVID, Governor Walz has issued 76 executive orders. That is a lot for anyone to react to. It's certainly a lot for our team to react to. And so I really thank our team for closely tracking the impact of all of those executive orders on this community. I need to assure you, sometimes people are making requests that we do certain things, that we open certain things. We cannot get ahead of the state on anything. That's legally not something we can do. So we can be more restrictive than the state. We cannot be less restrictive than the state. So we were truly anticipating July 1st as a time in which a new announcement would be made. And the fact that one was made last Friday is great. I know how exciting it is. I have kids who love to be outside and play sports. We are catching up as best we can. And so just want to acknowledge that we cannot be more restrictive, or we cannot be less restrictive. We can only be more restrictive, and that these orders come out, and we've got to work hard to adjust course and be the best community that we can be. In closing, I think I want to thank all of you. In the last several months, I think I've gotten 8 to, I don't know, I don't even know how many petitions I've gotten with signatures about something that's important to you. I've gotten many, communication campaigns about a decision that's important to you. And I want to assure you that I believe those things are important to you, and that at a time when we are talking about essential services and how do we make government work, we can't stand still on any one single issue. I would love to only work on one crisis at a time, but that just isn't how this works. So I do want to assure you that democracy matters, and you participating in it matters. I'm well aware that many people have wishes for decisions that I would make or would make differently. I honor that we have different opinions at different times, and I still am grateful that you communicate with me. So with that, I think that's it, Kate. Maybe we'll see what questions there are today from media, and I think maybe, do we also have some from the public?
We do. And so I'll start there before we go. Peter, I'll call on you in just a second. We did have a question from Wade, which I believe Noah Sheckman is on the call, and I will give this to Noah to answer. So Wade asked, what are your plans for attracting manufacturers to the area after the failure of tourism as the main industry to fund the city? And so Noah, thank you for being willing to answer that. You are unmuted. Go ahead.
Thank you, Kate. Excuse me, and Wade, for the question. Without the benefit of talking to our economic development staff about specific efforts, I can tell you that that is something that we work even in non-COVID times to be doing. And so that effort has continued, and certainly as the region's economy has changed as a result of the pandemic, as the city's economy has changed as a result of the pandemic, we are being as nimble as we can to try to attract additional businesses, try to retain the businesses that we have, as the mayor talked about earlier, and work to add in every area to make sure that we're keeping the robust economy locally. And so we are working on that. That is specifically something that we are tracking, and I appreciate the question.
Thank you, Noah. And now I'll open up for questions from the media. However, we do have another resident question that I'll get to in a little bit. Peter with the DNT, go ahead.
Okay, I had a question for Jim. In terms of the park staff that you're going to be calling back, how many positions does that involve, and approximately what percentage of the workforce does that represent?
Thanks, Peter. Jim, let me just bring you up here, and you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you for the question, Peter. We'll be bringing back up to 6 full-time year-round personnel, and then hiring up to an additional 12 seasonal employees. Some of those seasonal employees may be drawn from the group of employees who remain on layoff. They have that option. We normally have about 30 seasonals in a typical summer. So we're substantially boosting our park maintenance capacity, enough to make a noticeable difference that people will appreciate, but we're not restored to normal levels.
Hey, Jim, I'm sorry to cut in. Kate, Jim, because the technology was a little bit wonky, I want to make sure that people heard about how they're being funded and that it's not coming out of the general fund. Would you be willing just to say that one part again, please?
Absolutely. The 100% of the expense to partially and temporarily restore our park maintenance staffing levels will be covered by the Parks Fund, which by law may only be utilized to support parks activities.
Thanks, Jim. Our next question, I believe, is from Katie with the Star Tribune. Katie, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Thank you, Kate and everyone. First, I kind of just wanted to really follow up. I have two questions for Jim. I would first just ask how much money is in that Parks Fund reserve and how much you guys anticipate using to pay for these maintenance workers over the coming months. And then secondly, I am curious when the recommendations from the Spirit Mountain Task Force would be due.
Yeah, and I apologize, Katie. I think we're having some technical difficulties. The task force, I can just answer that. It will be in mid-July. And then, Jim, I will put you back up to answer the tough questions. You are unmuted. Go ahead.
Great. Katie, thank you for the question. The Park Fund reserves include some reserves that are put aside for capital projects. The reserves that we're drawing upon for this purpose are limited to the funds in our 2019 budget that we did not spend because we managed that 2019 budget very, very tightly. And so we're able to make those 2019 funds available to cover this 2020 need. The approximate costs to provide for all of these increased service levels for the period I described will be about $230,000.
Great, thanks, Jim. And I'm not seeing anyone else have any questions, so let me know if you do have a follow-up, and I'm happy to answer that. But just wanted to make sure that we're answering our residents' questions. This one will also go to Mr. Schuckman. Elizabeth had asked, what steps are being taken to change the systemic racism among City of Duluth employees? Will this issue be addressed from the top down, meaning will directors, managers, and supervisors, as well as rank and file, be included? Noah, would you be willing to answer that?
I would be delighted to, actually, Kate. Thank you for that. And Elizabeth, thank you for the question. This is something that I personally prioritize. The mayor does as well. And I can tell you that we have previously contracted with Cultural Fluency Associates for to make available their Fostering the Roots of Racial Cross-Racial Competence, program for all city supervisory staff. And that happened last fall. I participated, as did many of our department heads and supervisors, if not most. I know the mayor has previously participated in that program as well. And then I will also tell you that our police department has specifically contracted with them for that program to make sure that we're starting from that place of understanding the foundational concepts that are necessary and giving people the ability to move forward with a greater understanding and build on that. So that's something we have spent a lot of time on purpose, that we continue to focus on, and that over the long term, my goal is to continue to offer that to both supervisors and city line staff to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to grow in that area.
Great, thank you, Noah. Any other questions from members in the media before we sign off for the day?
Kate, sorry, I'm jumping in again. Katie, I feel like part of your question was, when are the recommendations going to be due from the Spirit Mountain Task Force? I'm not sure if I misheard that, but the group should start convening sometime, I think, and we'll make decisions in July. Applications will be open now. We are expecting recommendations before the end of the year. And I am really, really anxious and eager to get going on this. This is something that we actually, quite honestly, I was going to announce in my State of the City address back in March, I think. And because other things needed some priority, we were able to address those priority issues, and now we're coming back to this priority issue. So we are really, really eager to get going in that conversation. But I thought I heard a question about when those recommendations would be received, and we would expect them before the end of the year.
And thank you, Mayor Larson. Katie, just wanted to make sure that you got your question answered.
Yes, that was what I was asking, so appreciate the clarification. Thanks, Mayor.
Great, yeah, no problem. And before we end, Nishay Taylor from Fox has a question. Nishay, go ahead.
Thank you, Kate. I was just wondering, I'm sure you guys probably don't know how long, but how long will this task force be in place to kind of figure out Spirit Mountain situation? And if it's successful, do you all plan to keep it as a backup to kind of help them along the way for, I guess, for, I don't know, however long?
Good. Thanks for the question, Nishay. Jim, would that be something that you'd be able to answer? You're unmuted. Go ahead.
As the mayor indicated, we are hoping that this group will complete its work by the end of this year. It is as a mayoral task force, it is a temporary body. And so we would be asking citizens to serve intensively for 6 to 8 months, issue their findings, and then that group would dissolve.
Great, thanks, Jim. Nishay, hoping that answered your question.
Yeah, I had another, if possible.
Sure.
I was also wondering, what other options are on the table for Spirit Mountain if, they aren't able to complete the task that they're given?
Jim, this is your day, my friend.
Thank you for the question. We intend to look at all options, inclusive of contracting out for services, long-term leases for portions of the property, and even potentially sale of portions of the property. Understanding that some of those options are complicated quite a bit by the federal dollars that we used to acquire much of the property way back when. So I can't say which specific options within that umbrella we may pursue in earnest. That'll be up to the task force itself.
Thanks, Jim. Any other questions before we call it for the day? All right, seeing none, thanks all for joining us. We really appreciate it and hope you have a great rest of the day. Take care.